Today, we're breaking down life after Mo. We're talking the running back room, both the now and the future, and then how I rank the Big Ten running back rooms across the conference.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now we're kicking it off through our position breakdowns. Yesterday's show, we talked about the quarterbacks and we ranked them throughout the Big Ten. Now we're talking running backs, and we will be doing those rankings across the Big Ten for each and every group that we talk about, every single position group. So be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube. Be sure to follow wherever you get the podcast at Locked On Golden Gophers. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review so others can find the podcast and we continue to find more Gophers fans that always continue to row. Now today, like I said, we're talking about the running back room. We'll talk the depth chart, the future, and then as well as where this running back room ranks across the Big Ten. But first, I want to talk about Mohamed Ibrahim, because life after Mo is here upon us before we know it. The kickoff of the season is happening in 2 weeks. 2 weeks and we have football back. I absolutely cannot wait for that. Back in Huntington Bank Stadium, taking on Nebraska on August 31st. Now, I will be hopping to another Gophers practice later today. And so hopefully I will have more insights for you on that in this coming week as well. Maybe I'll drop a show this afternoon. Maybe we'll do it on Wednesday. But regardless, I'm going to have more updates for you on what we're seeing from practice. That being said, the Gophers have to replace Mo this year, and we know it's going to be more probably of a committee approach than it is a who's the next lead dog who's going to run 3, 4, 5 times in a row, get 20, 30 carries every single game. I don't think we're going to see that in this upcoming season without Mo. And a lot of national media looks at the team and they say, okay, they don't have a Mo Ibrahim. They're not going to be okay. Their offense is going to drop off heavily. They have a quarterback we don't know about. They don't have a running back that's an All-American like Mo. The Gophers are going to struggle. But that's not really what the case is. In fact, the Gophers have been doing really good at building up the young depth behind them, as well as finding great transfer additions. If you look over all 6 years of Coach Fleck's time here with the Gophers, you will find over double digits when it comes to players that actually provided a ton of production, some of them being all conference type players coming from out of the portal. They're very picky and very particular, which should encourage you for Sean Tyler, who is the guy who will probably head up this room. Now, Sean Tyler is a completely different type of running back than Mo Ibrahim. Their strengths are almost opposite. Mo was very good with his contact balance. He was good at forcing missed tackles. He was great at fighting through the contact, falling forward. Sean Tyler isn't a back that wants to take a ton of contact. In fact, Sean Tyler is a very elusive running back, a very fast running back. His speed pops off the second you see him in these practices and in his games that he played with Western Michigan. So completely different styles. Mo, if he broke a big one, it would be maybe a 45-yarder, a 50-yarder, and it was exciting, but you weren't necessarily thinking he will be able to take it all the way to the house because speed wasn't that element of his game. If Sean Tyler breaks one off and he has a gap, ain't nobody catching this man. So they're very different type players, but Sean Tyler will likely lead this room, but I don't think he's going to have 25 carries, 30 carries like Mo is seeing. In fact, I would be surprised if he gets over 20 carries very often. Now, I could be wrong on that front. We'll have to see more how this running back room shakes out. But I could see him more in that 15 to 20 carries every game type range. And then he also has another back working with him. Now, will it be multiple backs working with him every game, or will that back that's working with him change depending on the game plan? That's kind of what's still in the air with the Gophers heading into the 2023 season with this running back room. Now, there's 4 players that are really getting the reps with the number ones on the offense when it comes to practice. That is Sean Tyler, but then it's a mixture of Bryce Williams, Darius Taylor, the true freshman, and Zach Evans, the redshirt freshman. Now, we're going to talk about in just a minute all of those guys and how we think this thing will shake out in 2023. But just know that the Gophers will still have a productive running game. And just because everybody is saying we're going to lean more towards the pass, more towards balance, I do believe that to be true. But that doesn't mean we're not going to run the ball more than we pass it. Like I said, the last 2 years, we've been closer to 70% run and 30% pass. We've been closer to those numbers, but I think in an ideal world with Coach Fleck at the helm, he would prefer those numbers to be maybe in the 58 to 62% run, and then the opposite on passing. So we're looking more at like a 60-40 split than the 70-30 that we've been seeing for the past 2 years now. 2019, 61% pass or 61% run, and then what would that be? Flipping it, 49% pass. So 40, you got me, 39. Math is hard when you're doing it on the fly. But anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that the Gophers should be all right in this running back department. I think you're going to see more of a combination. We haven't seen too much of that in Coach Fleck's time here. In fact, I went back and looked at each and every single year, and there are only 2 years in which Mo really didn't have any carries besides one game. And that is 2017, Coach Fleck's first year here, where he went 5-7, and then 2021, where Mo got hurt in the first game and only played in that one game. So when you're looking at 2017, you're talking about a team that had Rodney Smith with 977 rushing yards, Kobe McCrary with 496 rushing yards, Shannon Brooks with 369 rushing yards, and then the quarterback having 309 rushing yards in Demery Croft. Now, that's something that maybe we could see more of the breakdown in 2023 with maybe Sean Tyler leading the way with close to 1,000 yards, if not at 1,000 yards, and then seeing about 400 to 300 yards between some of those other backs, whether it be Zach Evans and Darius Taylor, whether Bryce Williams gets some run in there as well. That's probably a more realistic approach is what that 2017 breakdown was, but also knowing that Ethan Kaliakmanis can run for 300 yards. That is a total possibility. He had about 160 some last year, and that was playing in about 6 games and not even starting them all. So if you give him a full year as a starter, I wouldn't be shocked to see Ethan Kaliakmanis at 300 plus rushing yards. So I think that's more of a realistic approach. Now, the 2021 is a little bit different because there were injuries constantly happening. Ibrahim got injured, Potts got injured, Bryce Williams got injured. So that played into it. But Kai Thomas with 824 yards, Bucky Irving with 699 yards, and then Trey Potts with 552 yards. That's a lot of spread, even though a lot of that, again, came from the injury. Kai Thomas and Bucky Irving were working more in tandem throughout the rest of the year. I think that's what you see more of. Now, is it Sean Tyler and Zach Evans working in tandem? Is it Sean Tyler and then Zach Evans, Darius Taylor, and Bryce Williams, depending on the game plan? That's what we're going to pay attention to this fall, and especially once we hit that first game versus Nebraska. But life after Mo is still going to be all right in the run game department. We've got youth, we've got veteran experience, we've got speed, we've got tackle breakers, we've got physical runners in Darius Taylor. So we're going to be all right. And we're going to talk about each and every one of those running backs, including the ones behind those, and a couple of young guys coming up through the ranks as well in 2024. We're talking about that next, breaking down the running back room and who is the next Gopher great. We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, I want to talk to you about our new friends over at Nutrafol. Now, you don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair, no drugs, no compromises, just better hair. And did you know 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of the thinning with Nutrafol. So you can go to Nutrafol.com/men and take their hair health and wellness quiz and identify the cause of your thinning. And Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Now you can take the first step to visibly thicker and healthier hair for a limited time. Nutrafol is offering our listeners over at Locked On $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping. when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, Gophers fans, we are breaking down the running back room and what the depth chart is potentially looking like. Who are the guys waiting in the wings and so much more. We'll kick it off with the projected top starters. Now, like I said, Sean Tyler. Get used to saying touchdown Tyler, because this man is flash fast. I'm saying this Gopher has some giddy up to him, and he will absolutely have a handful of home run touchdowns on the season. I have no doubt about that. In fact, his play style is similar to that of a Nyheim Hines, and he can be very efficient in this offense. He doesn't need the 25 plus touches like we talked about. He can get it done on 15 to 20 and still have a very productive game, especially if the O-line is clearing those pathways. So good vision, great speed, and Sean Tyler brings a new element to this Gophers room that we haven't seen in quite some time. But behind him, I think there's still going to be another Gopher that gets touches. And for me, the leading guy in that potential role is Zach Evans. Now, Mohamed Ibrahim called this man the future Gopher great. And to be quite honest, I believe him. He has that crazy shift into his second gear. Once he breaks through the hole and he has the vision and he gets through and he hits that second gear, he gets to it in a hurry and he is very quick. Now, he also, on top of that, has shifty hips. He has some creativeness and craftiness to him. He can wiggle. So he has the ability to make secondary defenders miss. And he absolutely left his safety on the bad end of a highlight reel in the spring game where he broke off a 75-yard touchdown. And that was one of his two big scores in that game. Now, I'm still convinced that Zach Evans is a part of the puzzle in that Bucky Irving transfer. I think, yes, NIL was the main factor. Yes, there were other things at play. But I think with how well Zach Evans was impressing in those spring camp of 2 years ago now, I think that he did play some sort of role in Bucky saying he might not be the lead guy. Now, he's not the lead guy out in Oregon. He still splits carries out there. But I think overall, Zach Evans really impressed this staff in that 2022 spring. He's likely to impress the fans this fall in 2023. So I think he is the guy that probably pairs the most with Sean Tyler over the year for the bulk of carries. But beyond that, I think there are probable contributors. So those are the next two backs I'm going to talk about. The first being Darius Taylor. Now, he's the highest incoming recruit of this 2023 class. He was an early enrollee, and he has got that dog in him. He's got that beast. He's got that. Look, he doesn't avoid contact. He embraces it. And no one else on this roster has the same type of running style as Darius Taylor. He's a highly touted true freshman. Senior year, he ran the ball 268 times for 2,450 rush yards and 36 rushing touchdowns. On top of that, he had 14 receptions for 300 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. He can catch the ball. He can get it done in the air. But the thing that was absolutely dumbfounding is in his senior year, he had 3 games, 1, 2, 3 games where he had 6 touchdowns in each of those single games. That is absolutely bonkers. This dude fights through contact, absolutely a beast. And guess what? He hasn't even been through the strength and conditioning program for a full year. So the future of this is absolutely insane what he can bring to this team. He also holds his high school single game rushing record with 438 rushing yards. So he's got a ton of upside in him. It's why schools like Michigan, Wisconsin, Purdue, Michigan State were all after him, offered him, and were trying to flip him late. He also used to be a slot receiver as a sophomore, so he's got the hands to catch the ball. Darius Taylor's going to find a way on the field this year, and I think he is the future with Zach Evans in the upcoming years. But the other probable contributor in this year is Bryce Williams. He's become all reliable in this running back room. He's the most veteran. He brings the most experience back to this roster, and he is a guy who does whatever it takes. He does whatever is asked of him. He is a very positive pass blocker. In 7 out of the 10 games where he had pass blocking assignments, he had a grade on PFF of 70 or greater. So overall, he gets it done, and I was very impressed. And he will find ways to contribute on this team, bar none. It's going to happen. Now, those will be the main ball carriers in 2023, in my opinion. The next man up beyond those 4 would be Jordan Nubin. He'll likely contribute on special teams, but he has shown flashes in the last fall camp and is a grinder for sure. He'd be the next man up, and I absolutely believe he will make the 2 deep and travel with this roster. Now, beyond that, the future outside of Taylor and Evans, who I said is probably going to lead this room for the next couple of years beyond 2023, you've got Marquise Williams. Now, I haven't seen anything from him yet in fall camp. He's still getting warmed up. He's still getting ramped in, still learning the playbook. But he is a great scat back type that could maybe spell Taylor and Evans in the future as soon as 2024. So I'm excited to see him on the field more and more. And then 2024 guys, Ohi fame, EJ boy. He's a speedster running back from, I believe, Pennsylvania, but he's got some top-end speed to him, thinking that top-end speed like Sean Tyler, so he'll step into this room and get warmed up and ramped up next year. And then I believe we've got a guy in Wright who is a bruiser in this class. So there's a lot of different types of running backs coming into this room, both now and in the future, that brings some shine to them. I also want to give a shout-out to Cortez LeGrant and Max Grand. Both of those guys walk-ons, but they put in the work, they grind, and they do what's asked for him. Max Grand had a couple touches in the games last year. I believe he broke one away last year. So you love to see the grind from those guys. Our running back room is still in a healthy spot without Mo. But even if Mo is missing, I think the Gophers are going to be a good, productive run team. But with Mo missing, where does the U of M rank in the Big Ten? To start 2022, you could have made a case that they would be in the top 3 in the Big Ten for running back rooms. That ceiling isn't quite what it will be this upcoming season, but how far of a tumble could they take in 2023? That's what we're going to talk about coming up next, ranking the Big Ten running backs. All right, Gophers fans, we are talking about Big Ten running back rankings. We're ranking the running back rooms across the Big Ten. Now, again, this ranking is how I believe they will finish the 2023 season, and I'm really focusing on the top 2 to 3 main options within those running back rooms. So if you're over on YouTube, you will see a scroller on the bottom of the screen to keep up with the rankings if you want to remember where these schools are, and I'll have you covered there. But otherwise, we will talk about each and every one, and we're going to start it off with number 14, which is Rutgers. Now, I had Rutgers at 14 with quarterbacks, 14 with running backs. It ain't looking pretty for the Scarlet Red Knights, but you know what? No disrespect, but if I say to you, Kyle Managny and Sam Brown V are your running backs, tell me how many yards they combined for last year. Your response would probably be, who? And you know what? The duo combined for 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. Not terrible last year, but Rutgers will often play from behind, and I don't expect much improvement on the running back side of things. I don't think they're going to improve very much on offense, even with Shiraka out there. So it's going to be a struggle to find production in the ground game. They come in at 14 for me. We go to 13, and it is none other than Northwestern. Now, Northwestern, Evan Hull is gone, and he leaves a huge hole of production behind him, a big void. Cam Porter has some touches, has played some RB2 to Evan Hull's RB1 at times, but will he be able to take on the bulk of the load and be the guy they need him to be to fill that role? I'm not so sure. You've also got Joe Hyman II, who could be a future running back in this room, redshirt kid from last year. The upside and the productions are both unknown, so I've got him in here at 13. You move to number 12, I've got Indiana. Now, Indiana has Jalen Lucas, who is an absolute freak of a kick returner. He actually made Bruce Feldman's freaks list at the very end in the 90s somewhere. But overall, he's a speedster, and he will be a good running back for this room. But will he be consistent from the running back position? We know he's great at kick returning. We know he can get out in a hurry. But they've maybe need more consistency on the running back side of things. On top of that, they have experience in the room with Josh Henderson, with Christian Turner. But again, if they're playing from behind a ton, how often will we be able to see real production from the running backs? We move on to number 11, and that is none other than Illinois. Now, don't get me wrong, Illinois running backs are rock solid, and they can hold their own. Both of their players who will likely get the most touches this year, Reggie Love and Josh McCray, have both made great usage from the running back 2 position behind Chase Brown. But the upside of playing to a level that we saw from Brown, I'm not sure is quite there. So that plus needing to see some healthy running from Josh McCray will be a big thing. He's got to stay healthy. So I've got a lot of question marks around this Illinois running back room as far as the top end upside, which puts them outside of the top 10 for me. We go over to number 10, and number 10 is Michigan State. Now, if Jalen Berger can put it all together, like we saw in the flashes in 2020 from Wisconsin and what people anticipated would be when he transferred to Michigan State, then this team could definitely finish higher on this list when it comes to running back rooms and production. But I don't know if it will all click the way he needs it to. On top of that, you've got Nathan Carter, who is a UConn transfer. He's a small speedster running back to complement Berger. But again, if they're playing from behind, if they're losing many games, will they have the opportunity to run the way they want to, the way of the Kenneth Walker years? I don't think we're going to get there. So they come in at number 10 for me. Number 9 is none other than Maryland. Maryland has Roman Hemby. He is a stud, but this is still a pass-heavy offense. Hemby's talent is what pushed this group into the top 10 for me with his over 900 rushing yards as a redshirt freshman last year. Now, there is some depth behind him, but I like the groups ahead of them, ahead of Maryland, even more when it comes to some of their depth or their top-tier talent. So that's what pushed them to 9, paired with their passing focus. We come to number 8, and number 8 is the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, this ranking surprises even myself because I am a Caleb Johnson truther. Now, look, I'm a Gophers fan through and through. I don't like Iowa. I don't like Wisconsin. But I got respect for both of their running backs, and I'll leave that as what it is. Now, Caleb Johnson, I think he has the ability to be a top 5 running back in the Big Ten Conference. That might be blasphemous to some folks out there, but this kid is special. Now, the reason Iowa isn't higher for me is because of the lack of depth behind him, and I'm just not sure they have enough talent outside of him, plus the offensive line. Can they hold up for him to be as special as his top end could be? We'll find out soon. We moved to number 7. Now, number 7, I almost wanted to put even higher with Nebraska because Anthony Grant was a mauler last year. And if that Temple-style offense is coming with Rule, then Grant could be a dynamo in 2023. That paired with the versatility of Billy Kemp, who is coming from Virginia, who can play as a receiver and a running back, kind of a dual threat. I could see this team as high as potentially 5 on this list when it finishes and it's all said and done. But the departure of A.J. Allen was kind of sad for Huskers fans, and it helped me bring them down just a little bit because I don't know what is there beyond the 2 veteran upperclassmen in Anthony Grant and Billy Kemp that is notable for the future. Now, number 6, I've got Minnesota. Sean Tyler helped bring the element to this room that they haven't seen in quite some time with his blazing speed. Now, he might not be an every down running back, but his style paired with a Zach Evans or a Darius Taylor could be very special. We haven't seen this much of a split as what we're anticipating from PJ Fleck in this running back room. So that unknown stops me from putting them any higher because I don't know how these carries are going to shake out. I don't know who really is the number 1 back. Could it completely turn on its head? Could Darius Taylor be number 1? Could Bryce Williams be number 1? I don't know, and I don't know what that looks like, along with possibly passing the ball more and using more of Ethan's talents. I had to keep them outside of the top 5 on this one. But we moved to the top 5, and number 5 is Purdue. Now, I had a hard time putting Purdue ahead of Minnesota, but Maccabee has done it on a Big Ten level, and he can get it done. Dylan Downing is a nice compliment when healthy, and then moving Tyrone Tracy from wide receiver to running back, with him averaging 8 yards per carry, that could add some burst element to this Purdue running game, along with his pass catching ability. I think that's going to be a nice addition or a nice change for them in that room. Now, you talk about what Ryan Walters saw with Illinois. If he brings Graham Harlan, who had really good success running the ball with West Virginia, if they find ways to incorporate that with Purdue, they could definitely find themselves finishing in the top 5. So I haven't really seen much on the field from the Gophers running backs at the Big Ten level, which is why I had to get Purdue in front of them. I'm not sure how the touches will all play out. We move on to number 4, and number 4 is Wisconsin, number 4 in quarterbacks and running backs now. But Wisconsin, I think Braylon Allen might be the best running back in this conference for 2023 to find NFL success in the future. He's built for it, paired with his speed. He's got that 6'2", 240 size, something that can really be a bully, not only at this level, which we've seen in the Big Ten, but in the NFL as well. So I think he's going to have a lot of upside, and his passing production has been ticking up. So that paired with Chez Mellusi being the running back 2, a steady-handed guy, a nice complimentary running back, I think they come in at 4 for me. Now, the top 3 are tough. They could go any which way, but I've got it coming in 3 at Ohio State. Now, honestly, if healthy, I think TreVeyon Henderson may be the most talented running back in the conference and maybe in the nation. After he finished his freshman year, he was getting Bijan Robinson level hype from a lot of voices outside, but that injury really kind of brought some of the luster down. But you pair that with a healthy Mayan Williams and a healthy Dallas Hayden, who both stepped up with injuries from last year, and they've got a nasty trio. Hayden and Williams both took the helm nicely when both TreVeyon Henderson got hurt, and then at times Mayan Williams got a little banged up. They all had over 500 rushing yards. We had a 500, a 800, and then TreVeyon, I believe, had 500 as well. If we see TreVeyon go back to that 1,200 or so rushing yards, I still think we see a lot of production from Mayan Williams and some solid highlights from Dallas Hayden as well. So who's number 2 and who's number 1? Now, I think I'm going to shock some people with this one, but at number 2, I've got Michigan. I am very curious to see how Blake Corum bounces back from this injury. Now, Michigan was absolutely the best running back room in the country, possibly last year, but in the Big Ten, most likely. Now, I think the team that edged them out at number 1 has more upside for the upcoming year, but it sounds as though Blake Corum was headed to the NFL prior to the injury. He was ready to go that direction. Now, him and Donovan Edwards are both back. They're majorly talented, but I've got them passed up by 1 unit in 2023. Now, the additions of Benjamin Hall and Cole Cabana and the flashes they showed in spring are what helped push them above Ohio State for me, but they couldn't quite claim the 1 spot because at 1, I've got Penn State. Now, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are the truth. Both were true freshmen last year. One cracked over 1,000, one was in the 800s, but they both bring a fire and ice combo. They both get it done. They both have that electric top end speed. Both will be NFL running backs someday. I am convinced of that. Now, although Michigan definitely has a case for number 1, both the running backs were more productive in 2022 for Michigan. I think Michigan is going to pass the ball a bit more in 2023, which will allow the Penn State duo to claim the throne as the number 1 productive running room in the Big Ten. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what you're thinking, where I went wrong, who you would switch and all that stuff. But tomorrow we're covering the receivers. You're not going to want to miss that. I think I'll have a couple shockers in there for you. Now, that's going to do it for us on today's show. I will see you tomorrow. Row the boat, Sky Umont, go Gophers. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.